Welcome to On Campus at SUNY New Paltz. I'm Robert Miraldi and I teach journalism here at the college at New Paltz. We have entered our fall academic semester, 2009-2010 academic year, and there's lots of new faces here, faculty, students, transfer students, international students, and lots of activity here on campus and lots of things to look forward to, as well as some daunting issues to face. Joining us today to talk about some of those new faces and some of those issues is the president of the college at New Paltz, Stephen Poskanzer. Stephen, welcome to On Campus.
Thanks, Rob. Great to be here.
Thank you for joining us again.
Thanks for doing this again.
My question to you is, I saw a photograph in the newspaper the other day. You were in a white T-shirt. I couldn't quite tell if you looked like an undergraduate or a parent or a college president trying to help students, but you were helping students move into their residence halls. Did you wish for a moment that perhaps you were staying in the residence hall and you were an undergraduate once again?
Well, first I wished for a cooler day. It was very hot and humid. If you look at the picture, I looked like I climbed out of a pool. I was sweating so much. But yeah, when the semester starts, there's always a feeling of wonderful excitement and even nostalgia for what it's like being a freshman, going off to school, trepidation, but anticipation of having the experience of your lifetime. And I envy the students a little bit of that. Part of the fun, I think, for both of us of spending our lives in academia is, while we're not students anymore, every fall when those students come back on campus and when new colleagues arrive, there is a feeling that the year is fresh, something wonderful is about to happen again, and boy, I sure felt that this fall.
I thought you might want to stay in the dorm, stay in the residence hall for another reason, and that is we are facing some daunting economic questions and issues. As we've all been reminded so many times, we're looking at the worst national recession in many, many decades. And I'm wondering, first off, what you see as both the opportunities and the challenges faced by a national recession for us, public higher education.
Well, you know, historically, in tougher economic times, people pay careful attention to their long-term investments and needs. And enrollment in education and commitments to education often are counter-cyclical to the economy. So you see increased enrollments and people understanding that education is the best investment they can make in an uncertain economy. And I think we are seeing that once again. Obviously, I'm hoping for, you know, a quicker and a more robust turnaround of the economy rather than a longer recession. But one of the interesting things that we are seeing is that students and families making college choices are looking especially carefully at high-quality, great public institutions, which are much more affordable but aren't compromising at all on the quality of what you might get. And for a place like New Paltz, which is a very well-regarded public institution, our strong market position actually puts us in very good stead in this economy.
So sometimes in a down national economy, people are not willing to pay that $30,000, $35,000, $40,000 a year for private college, but they're looking for a good, solid, where perhaps $15,000 a year quality institution. And you would suggest we represent that.
Oh, we are that. In fact, I would go even a little bit further and say in this economy, people recognize that it's not worth paying an extra $30,000, $40,000 to go to, you know, a mediocre private institution where you can get a better institution at a better price by coming to New Paltz or Geneseo or Binghamton.
The other question would be, though, while there might be some upside in that more people will look to us in a down national economy, the downside would be that, of course, as we all know, New York State is, you know, facing terrible, as are so many states, facing terrible budget problems and budget shortfall. What's your sense of, I guess, two things. What did we face last year in terms of the New York State budget, and perhaps give us a little glimpse on what we're looking at and where we stand right now?
Sure. I mean, you know, where you see this, of course, most immediately is in the impact for families themselves struggling to pay for school. And, you know, we pay a lot of attention to the financial aid and trying to support students and their families in this environment. But the root cause of this for public institutions is both the economy and then choices that state governments all around America are making. For New York, in the budget year that we're in right now, this is the 9-10 fiscal year. The state budget's a little bit different from the calendar year.
Right.
New Paltz faced essentially a $6 million budget cut. That's a very significant chunk, more than 20% of our direct state support that we get. And one of the great challenges that we faced this last year was that while tuition was increased for the first time in several years to help respond to those economic crises the state has, most of the tuition dollars that were raised, the new tuition money, was essentially sucked away and used for other state purposes instead. That was a great frustration for many of us last spring. But despite those state cuts, what we've done on our campus is come up with a very thoughtful, very forward-looking plan that lets us restore the economy of the college to balance, protects the most critical academic functions that we have, and protects tenure, protects, you know, the core values of this institution, and positions us to succeed as we go forward, and to succeed very well.
Mm-hmm. So we had a $6 million cut last year to our budget. Out of a total, what is our total budget approximately?
The total budget is $130 million a year, but the state support part of our budget, the direct money that comes from the state, is about $60 million. So you had a huge chunk of that go away.
I'd like to come back to the tuition question and where that money has gone, perhaps where it should go. But a lot of people are confused. You walk around campus and you see lots of construction, to our student union building, to some of our main facilities, lots of new initiatives in terms of construction. And people wonder, why are there some cuts necessary to academic aspects, but construction goes on? Could you just, excuse me, quickly explain that?
Sure, it's a great question, because if you didn't know how New York State's budget worked, that would be the immediate conclusion that any of us would draw. While I've criticized the state for what it's done on the operating side, I have to salute the state and our leaders for understanding that you always need to be making capital investments in the state university. And those two budgets, the capital and the operating budget, are literally separate. Money can't be moved from one to the other. And at the moment when our operating budget has been cut very dramatically, New York is not cutting its capital budget so far, and I'm very pleased and very grateful for that. So that has enabled us to begin to address some of the long-standing, 20, 30 years in some cases, facilities needs on our campus, and we have been able to go ahead with those projects right now. Construction costs only go up over time, so if there are buildings that you need, we're better off building them now, and then we'll have them when we need them.
We'll come back to some of the specifics on some of the construction projects taking place right now. Switch gears a little bit. Can you tell us about enrollments, applications in the last cycle, how many people in general have applied to us, how that relates to perhaps other SUNY colleges and to our own history?
Glad to. New Paltz remains an incredibly popular institution because we're strong and we're in a great location. I think we're on a roll as a campus. So for the 19th consecutive year, this spring, we had the most applications of any of the colleges in the SUNY system. We had almost 19,000 freshman and transfer applications altogether, most we've ever had.
Our total student undergraduate population is approximately 5,000?
About 5,000 undergraduates, about 1,500 graduate students, best way to think of it.
So that's 19,000 applications for essentially 5,000 slots overall.
Right, well, no, because...
less because if you look in the freshman class.
Exactly, yeah. Right, okay. You're really looking more on the order of 12 or 13,000 applications for 1,000 to 1,500 entering freshman and transfer students. We're not growing in size. We don't want to get bigger. This is the time to get better rather than to get bigger in New York State. And so with so many more applications and us not adding to the size of the freshman class, we were very selective, and we have recruited a class that just knocks your socks off in terms of their quality. When you look at their high school averages, it's typically a 91 to 92 high school average. The SAT scores are 1170. That's the highest it's been in several years. The intellectual curiosity level of this class, and that's probably the most important thing, as we guess it from and gauge it from the writing essays that they submit as part of the applications, the letters of reference that they get, the types of courses they've taken in high school. Very high. We're really excited about this class. We have
just 30 seconds left here, but quickly, how do we compare to other state colleges in terms of applications?
Oh, we are in terms of SUNY colleges, we get the most applications of any of the comprehensive colleges.
I'm Robert Miraldi. We're talking to Stephen Poskanzer, president of the College of New Paltz, on campus at SUNY New Paltz. Please come back and join us.
I'm so glad I've chosen the School of Business at SUNY New Paltz. So far, I've taken classes in marketing, management, accounting, finance.
My professors have worked in all facets of business. They helped me in the classroom and by getting me involved in programs outside the classroom.
I learned from faculty and students from all over the world.
The students, the faculty, and the dean all work together. It's like a family.
SUNY New Paltz, the preferred business school of the Hudson Valley.
Welcome back to On Campus at SUNY New Paltz. I'm Robert Miraldi. I teach journalism. We're talking today with the president of the College of New Paltz, Stephen Poskanzer. Stephen, I just had a Facebook message this morning with one of my graduate students who still hasn't kind of settled herself in the world, and it's always sad to that students leave, but then on the other hand we have the excitement of all these new eager faces. So let's just go back a little bit to talk about the freshman class, the transfer class, maybe a little discussion of international students we have here on campus. Tell us again about the freshman class, number of freshmen we have.
1,100, exactly the number we wanted, within an uncanny level of precision this fall. And 675 transfer students, again, right where we wanted the class to be. As I said in our last segment, we're really not trying to grow as a campus. Our emphasis has been on trying to raise consistently every year the quality and the intellectual vitality of our student body, and we're seeing that happen because we were so selective, and because in the fall of 2008 we'd had a slightly larger freshman class than we wanted, because the yield, the percentage of students accepting our offer of admission, had really spiked that fall. We were very careful this fall not to overcrowd our residence halls and bring too many students in the classroom to dilute the quality there either. So we're right the numbers we want to be.
Now, our freshman students, mostly from New York State again, as far as you know. Obviously, all our students mostly come from New York State. Can you tell us a little bit more about qualitatively what we're looking at in freshman class?
Sure. As is traditionally the case for us, about 90% of our students are from New York State. We have seen over the years increasing in numbers of enrollments from here in the Hudson Valley. And we're seeing that, of course, again in this economy. Students that might have thought about going away to school will be drawn to New Paltz instead. New York City, Long Island, hugely big draw areas for us. Interestingly, at least based on my somewhat unscientific survey as I was loading, boxes into residence hall rooms this fall, a fair number of kids from the southern tier, the Binghamton, Syracuse area, so we like breaking into that market a little more. And you mentioned earlier international students. We have 500 international students with us this fall, and they literally come from every corner of the globe. South Asia, East Asia. We even have a cohort of students from Egypt that are here as part of a USAID very distinguished program where they pick emerging leaders from every district of the nation of Egypt. They send them to the American University in Cairo with a free ride, and some of those students need to have an international experience, and New Paltz is one of the 2 places in the United States where they're coming to get that experience.
I have an Italian student from Florence, Italy in one of my classes this semester. First time I've had an Italian student in class. And that always adds an interesting element to the classes and to the university to have this international flavor, which we have a considerable. And of course, we send many students abroad to various places.
Oh, that's right. New Paltz sends more of our students to study abroad and brings more international students here than any of our peer colleges in the SUNY system. And like you say, that's a huge intellectual strength for us.
Which leads me to a question. Why are we so attractive? Why is it that we have these thousands of applications? Why is it that we outpace the other state colleges in terms of people wanting to apply?
Well, my quick answer is because we're so good.
And that's certainly part of the answer.
And drilling down behind that, why are we good? Well, I think it starts with the fact that we've always paid really careful attention to having students bond with faculty members. Alumni surveys demonstrate that New Paltz graduates feel that the connections they forge with their faculty are really a defining aspect of their experience. We're small in size, we're not trying to grow, which means that over the years the size of classes has gotten smaller, the ability for more individualized attention from faculty has grown up. We have been promoting student-faculty capstone and research experiences. Again, that's something that draws smart, talented, committed students. They want to have the chance to work on a senior project or do a senior recital and really have that faculty mentor get a paper published.
Faculty-student ratio currently, or average classroom size?
Yeah, student ratio is about 15 to 1. It was 17 to 1 several years ago. We've driven it down. Like to take it down even further.
In this budget climate, is that likely to happen?
Well, the 15 to 1 is a slight uptick. We actually had it down to about 14 to 1.
So we had to move it up just slightly.
Right, but that was really just the nature of the full-time faculty in some cases. We really do not plan on growing our student body.
Come back to the tuition, if I could. Tuition went up, I believe, $620 this year, and we never quite know if that actually, I don't get a sense that people don't come back to us because of that. It seems to have a bit more of a burden. Students probably working a bit more, working more during the semester. I see so many of my students having to work not only in the summer, but during the semester. What's your sense of the effect of the tuition rise on students? And then I'd like to just come back to where that money has gone or is going.
Well, I think you've described it exactly right. I think for most families, $620 is a very significant increase in what they were planning to pay for college. I don't think it's going to stop students from coming to college, but there's no question that it makes it harder for them and their families, and we're going to see people taking on second jobs or in some cases even third jobs. And in return for that, it becomes the college's responsibility to do everything we can to give more financial aid, to raise more money for scholarships, and to try and help students navigate these harder financial shoals.
Have there been changes in tuition assistance, or at least progress in terms of more tuition assistance, or are we pretty much where we were?
Oh, we've absolutely tried to do everything we can to increase the amount of financial aid that we've given, and that's been the big push in talking to alumni and donors. This is the time where we need scholarship support for students so that young men and women, or older men and women that are getting a degree at New Paltz, can do that without really straining their families.
You've spoken publicly about this, but tell us how, right now, you would think, okay, $620 per student would be a lot of new revenue for the college and might offset some of the budget cuts and budget losses. But that obviously hasn't happened because of the way the money is now being distributed. Can you discuss how the money actually gets dispersed or distributed, and your sense of the justice of that, so to speak?
Sure. I mean, look, I understand that New York State is in, really unprecedented financial constraints, and I don't envy, the legislative, executive branch and the folks in the division of the budget that are trying to make the state's economy work under these circumstances. But a decision was made as part of the 9-10 fiscal year planning to first cut SUNY's budget. It began with a cut. Then tuition got raised, and in the past what would typically happen is that you cut the budget, tuition gets raised, and the university ends up around the same place where it started. The downside with that, of course, is that you've essentially shifted the burden of paying for that education from the taxpayers as a whole to individual students and their families. What happened this year was we got cut, then tuition got raised, and then, in its wisdom, the government took 90% in one semester and then 80% in the second semester of that tuition increase, and it just went right into general state coffers.
So only a small percentage of that tuition rise actually comes back that we see.
Right. The best way to think of it is essentially it's a tax on students and their families.
Students and families.
Right. I don't think that's particularly great public policy, but that was last year's budget, and I'm going to be confident that our legislator and our elected leaders are going to make what I think are wiser and more forward-looking choices as we go.
Well, we have a new chancellor, Nancy. I have not met her. I know she was here this June, Nancy Zimpher. And she visited our campus, was apparently one of the first of the first SUNY campus that she visited. She visited all of the 64, I think, campus units throughout the state, has just finished her visits. She came to us in June. Tell us about her visit and tell us what you think she saw and tell us what you might hope from the new chancellor of the SUNY system.
We were lucky. We were the first of the SUNY colleges that she came to visit, and she's a dynamo. I'm really excited about her leadership. She is very smart, very politically savvy, and maybe one of the quickest studies in leadership that I've encountered. She came to our campus really to learn about New Paltz and to get a mosaic picture altogether across all 64 campuses of what makes SUNY great and to think about how we can make it even better as a system. Clearly, she's very experienced in dealing with sophisticated political and business leaders and convincing them of the value of higher education. I think she's going to be able to do that for New York State as well. What I hope that she would learn on her day here, and I'm confident that she did, is that New Paltz has a very special niche as a wonderful first-class public liberal arts college. That's something that the northeastern part of the United States needs, and there's room for 4 or 5 great institutions to fill that niche. We're going to do it, and I think she walked home at the end of the day understanding why that makes sense for New Paltz, why that makes sense for SUNY, and why it's good for New York.
I'm going to stop you right there. We will be back. I'm Robert Miraldi on campus at SUNY New Paltz. Please come back and join us.
Take a step up in your career with a master's degree from SUNY New Paltz. The graduate school at SUNY New Paltz offers masters in a variety of fields, including business, education, science and engineering, fine and performing arts, and psychology. Our faculty will help you get what you need to advance in your career, and our classes are geared to fit your schedule. A master's degree from SUNY New Paltz. It's what your career needs.
Welcome back to On Campus at SUNY New Paltz. I'm Robert Miraldi. I teach journalism. We're talking today with Stephen Poskanzer about the new academic semester, academic year, 2009-2010. Stephen, we've been looking a little bit at the freshmen, the transfers. Tell us about the faculty this semester. We have a number of new faculty members. Can you tell us what the new faculty class looks like?
Sure can.
First off, total number of full-time faculty here at the College of New Paltz.
Around 330 to 335.
Okay, we've added to that this fall.
We have added, there are 12 to 15 new faculty who are joining us this fall, but the total numbers last fall to this fall are down just a little bit because of the economy.
Okay.
But the good news is that actually we're hiring faculty in an environment when most of our peer institutions aren't. A lot of other SUNY campuses responded to these budgetary constraints that you and I were talking about by slamming on hard hiring freezes. And we're not going to do that at New Paltz. We're absolutely convinced that continuing to hire new faculty, even if we can't hire as many as we'd like, is essential for, you know, the vitality and the future success of the college. So we have a cohort of 15 that started this fall, and we've already authorized 15 searches for next fall as
so
well.
We're hoping to do 15 searches for this coming year.
And they're great. They are coming to us from, you know, the best PhD programs in the country, literally from around the world. We have folks in sociology that are starting this fall, and in psychology, and in business. Just really strong cohort.
I have a new colleague in digital media as we begin to move into the world of conversion, so that's been an important hire for us to move us into new areas.
It's a good example of knowing how a field is evolving and understanding that you can't stand still academically. Colleges and universities are a little bit like sharks in that regard. If you're not moving, you're not growing, you're not flourishing.
Well, speaking of evolving fields, I'm wondering what your sense is of how our students are faring in terms of the job market. It's obviously a difficult job market simply because of the national economy. Do you have a sense of what is happening? It's too early, I'm sure, to judge the last class, but what's your kind of sense of what the job market looks like for our graduates?
Well, the job market's getting tougher for everyone, but absolutely what we're seeing is that bright, talented, committed people who are willing to, you know, pay their dues are going to get jobs and are going to succeed. We think as a college we have an obligation, though, to help our students get a leg up on the job market and being placed in ways that I think we probably haven't always done. And so our Career Resource Center has really taken their game to a whole new level. We move them to a more visible location right on the ground floor.
Beautiful new space for them.
And it has been a huge success. The number of students taking advantage of their services is up by 57% in just one semester. And equally exciting, the number of companies coming to our campus to interview students is up by 40% over that same time. So more employers are coming here, more students are understanding that we can actually help them get that internship that can lead to a job, or actually help them get that first job. And, you know, quite frankly, I'm very happy to have our alumni keep coming back to us for additional help with placement over the course of their career.
This begs the question in some ways, what should a university, we're a small liberal arts college, and of course some people say, well, what can you do with a liberal arts degree as opposed to either a vocational or more technically oriented? We do some of that, of course. What would be your sense of our role and purpose these days in a challenging economic environment in terms of what we should be doing to educate our graduates?
There are timeless skills that students need. And they're exactly the skills that a great liberal arts education gives you, and they're exactly the skills that employers tell you repeatedly are the things they most want in their graduates. What are those skills? They're easy. The ability to think critically, the ability to work as part of a team, the ability to construct an argument, the ability to critique somebody else's argument, the ability to think outside the box, the ability to take something that you've used in one subject and apply it in another setting. Those are exactly the skills that a liberal arts education gives you, They're exactly the skills that employers want, and they're exactly the skills that we're providing right now at New Paltz. So I feel real good about how we're positioning students to succeed in the market.
Mm-hmm. I promised earlier in the talk, we don't only have a couple of minutes left, we'd quickly perhaps look at some of the major construction projects taking place. Can you just give us a quick sense of, we have plans for our library, we have one of our main buildings, the old main building under construction, we have lots of things going on at the Student Union building. Maybe real quickly just give us a capsule view of those projects.
Sure. 5 major projects I'd talk about.
Okay.
The old main building, most beloved, most significant structure on our campus, being totally rehabilitated, $27 million project, classroom space and faculty offices. Mm-hmm. We're building an addition onto our Student Union building, which will give us for the first time ever a real commons, a real place for students to meet and assemble and hold functions. We are building a brand new science building at the corner of Mannheim and North Plattekill, $48 million project for computer science, geology, geography, mathematics.
Estimated completion time, 3 years?
Probably 3 years, maybe 4 years. Takes a while to do that one, right. Yeah. We are doing a renovation of our library. That's a $13 million project to make it even more of a 21st century information commons for our students. And last but by no means least, as part of our landscaping and facilities master plan for the college, we are ripping up all the old concrete walkways and the sort of uninviting, inhospitable urban core of our campus and making it a green, inviting, contemplative, warm, very attractive campus center, more like a park where we hope community members and students will spend time and visit.
We're down to our last minute, so I wondered if you could just quickly answer the question, what do you think is the biggest challenge we face for this generation of students entering the college at New Paltz in the year 2009?
The biggest challenge we face is a challenge that never goes away. How do you make sure you provide an education to students that changes their lives and does that in a way that absolutely binds them to this college forever? If we do our job right, bright young men and women come here and they learn things that equip them for a fulfilling career and a wonderfully exciting life. But if we do it really well, they graduate from here, like I said earlier, with a faculty mentor who's going to be a guide for them for the next 20 years. They graduate with a group of friends that they're going to be in touch with, and they graduate with a sense that this happened at this special place, and they feel committed to, loyal, willing to support, willing to advocate for the college that changed their life for the better.
I thank you for being here. We're out of time, Stephen. Thanks for answering our questions and joining us today on campus at SUNY New Paltz. Thanks for being with us.